Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we are bringing you a first impressions, played it once-esque style video. Now, if you're not familiar, Quackalope runs a podcast. You can find it on any of your podcast hosting sites or in the link of any of our video descriptions with a series on there called The Weekly Quack, which is a weekly update on board game news, games we're getting rid of, and everything around the industry. And also Played It Once, a series where we do a deep dive into a single game that we've had usually lower experiences with. I've only played on Mars 1.5 times.
I think I'm at 2.5.
You're 3.5 now.
One of them was solo.
Yeah. Sure. And so this is our series where we just sit back and talk, sort of like we do at the end of the gameplay videos. What are your first impressions of... So for context, our Patreon sponsored a gameplay video of On Mars. So Andy came over, and he had actually, before we knew Patreon had sponsored it, had mentioned offhandedly, oh, I'd love to play that game. Look at the giant box. It's way too expensive for me to ever take home, but...
I have to play it before I spend it.
And then we gave it to him and said, if you could meet us back here in a week and teach me how to play the game, that would be lovely. And you did just that.
I did. I don't know if I did it well, but
so
we got through it.
First impressions. I'll add mine in a little bit, but I'm really curious. What was it like learning this game? How hard was it to get to the table? What were that very first game you played? What was prep time, and what were your first impressions of it?
So learning it was it took longer than most games I've learned, but I enjoyed it because I watched a couple videos on how to play, and I also read through the instructions maybe 3 or 4 times, and then again. While I was playing, I was referencing. They give you, the rules are great, and the reference sheet that they lay out makes it really easy to find what you're looking for. It wasn't that bad. Once you get through it and you play a couple rounds, it started to click.
Sure.
And as far as understanding the rules of the game was easy. Now strategy is a whole nother thing.
We're gonna get to that.
Yeah, but the learning curve was not that bad once you really delve into it.
That first game you said took you quite a while, though.
It did, but I was trying to set up myself as 2 people. But yes, I was constantly in the rule book and the reference sheet. But it was fun.
First impressions, final thoughts?
I love the game.
Yeah? Love? I mean, is that...
So
like the Corinthians says that like love is patient, love is kind, envy does not boast. Is like do you like is the verb of love? Are you very affectionate?
Yes,
take care of this game.
Yes, I would
you take it
care
home,
of it.
Wine and dine it a little bit.
Has it been in bad shape when I brought it back to you?
Cuddle, every evening when it's having a bad day.
All of the above.
I love that. All right, great. Why?
So I was a big fan of Terraforming Mars, and this just it has so much more than that game, and I still love that game, but. I like the pieces. I like all the stuff they give you. The everything you get with the box is very nice, and then the gameplay itself. Like I could see myself playing this 15 times and still not understanding a solid strategy.
Sure. Yeah, this one's way more Euro-esque than Terraforming Mars is.
Yeah.
Now I like Terraforming Mars with the drafting. I think the strategy and like tableau building in that and resource management in that's really really rewarding. This one's another level of complexity.
Yes.
For you, what's your preferred way to play this? Like, are you excited to play it at higher player counts? Are you loving solo and 2-player?
So I've only played solo and 2-player. I really enjoyed both solo and 2-player, actually. Solo, I got to kind of slow down and plan out what I was going to do.
Min-max a little bit.
2-player, it was fun. I feel like 2 and 3 are a good number. As long as a turn, while it can be quick, can also take a really long time.
If you're playing with the wrong person in this game, like we were even so slow playing a bit.
Yeah.
And if you play with someone who takes 5 minutes a turn or wants to make sure every action is perfect.
Like thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead.
Yeah.
It could slow down quite a bit.
There's a lot of AP potential here.
Yes.
And it encourages that, in a way. Yeah. The way that this track up here works, where you're going to be transferring from in orbit to on the ground, that creates a level of AP that is almost necessary. I need to decide, before I move from a location, how many workers I'm getting back, where I'm going to be placing them, whether or not I can last 2 or 3 rounds for the orbit to cycle again and for me to get an opportunity to go back into space and grab resources. And so every sequence, you really need to be a couple turns ahead.
and I do think at higher player counts, if you play with a group that knows the game, like the more I've played, the more I understand it, and the quicker my turns get.
Sure.
Even starting to think 1 or 2 turns ahead. So if you had a dedicated group that you weren't always teaching a new person every time, I think 3 or 4 would be good.
So you said you love this game.
I do. So I really like components and
the mouth feels fantastic.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like even the insert is really nice. It makes setup and teardown really easy. There's enough to the game that even when I was playing solo, it kept me entertained.
What do you have any reservations so far? Because I think I have a few. For people, maybe not for yourself. But for
I would
people.
say if this is a game you're wanting to bring to the table a lot, there might be a lot of people who might not want to play this heavy of a game because it is a heavy game.
Yeah, that's one of my big ones. Is just this is an aggressive Euro, and it doesn't apologize for that. But it also, I think it is beautiful enough. You could trick people into playing it that maybe aren't prepared to. This, when it comes strategically, this is a hard one for me to just play with. A lot of Euro games, especially midweight Euro games, have like 7 pathways you can go down, and any of them could be good as long as you're the most efficient in them and get the right cards for them. This one didn't feel like that. This one, from our very beginning, from our teaching session all the way to the gameplay, for me it was everything's tied so intricately together. I need resources to generate, buildings, to get more resources, to create and move around the map. And I did find a button to play with. Like I was pushing the rover as far as possible. But this one's weird because I upgraded that, which means you had access to that technology, which is such a weird dynamic in a Euro-esque game, or such a weird dynamic in any game that I've played. That that constant cross-proliferation of abilities. I need to pay attention to your board to understand what access I have, to understand where we are as a society. You need to pay attention to the map because you're going to get a benefit based off of where I've built. And endgame scoring is just like that as well. It's fascinating because I don't know of another game that is competitive, that is Euro, that allows player cooperation to such a heavy degree. This is a cooperative game with everything except the scoring in a lot of ways.
But if you want to maximize the amount of points you're getting, you have to pay attention not only to what you're doing.
You got to watch the table.
What he's doing as well.
Yeah. Overall, I really like this one. I am scared to play it again. I think it's hard. I would be intimidated to teach it.
Yeah.
Which would kind of be a crux for me. I feel like this one would not get off the shelf for the sheer fact that sitting down, setting up, and teaching a new player. If you came over another evening and we were like feeling on Mars and wanted to get it out to the table, and you and I were ready to go, and maybe we were teaching one other player, I'm good, right? Because we could team up on that. But I don't think realistically I'm gonna try to teach a new player this game.
And I don't think I would want to be the only person trying to teach 3 other players.
You probably
game.
One at a time. Yeah, I'd walk this one slowly. I'd start by learning solo, and then I'd maybe progress one player at a time until your whole game group was ready to go. Because there's just going to be so much. There's going to be so many questions and so many potential rule breaks and twists, and there's a lot of micro detail and nuance. Now, all of it I think is communicated very well. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that there's not a ton going on. Thematically for me, I thought this was very strong. There were some elements that didn't ever feel thematic. For instance, I didn't really care about my technology upgrades. I didn't understand what I was building. Like, I get that there are constructions and you get blueprints and like it's some like geothermal engine that you're constructing on the but none of that ever felt real to me. These were just resource generators and the people were just extra workers. I do wish that was maybe a little bit more thematically rich, whether it's flavor text or art or something that sinks me into that world. In terms of my player boards, I'm going to be honest, outside of the map here, I didn't feel the theme came through much at all. I was playing an economic game. I was playing a resource management, worker placement, like push the dials game. I don't know that outside of this, I felt very thematic. Now here I did, running around the board with the rovers, moving your little android so that you can construct a new plot of zone. Like, I was even thinking about how, like, you'd condensed all the water over on the far side, and, you know, we probably had irrigation systems funneling it to the green, you know, to the green areas.
Yeah.
But all of that was a little bit more superficial. I think if thematically it had been a little bit more deep, I may love it a little bit more.
Yeah.
For me, I really like the game so far. I don't know that I love it. And I don't know that I'd recommend it to people.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I would not be upset if you borrowed this for another month.
I would not be upset by that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how I gauge. Like, I've played some games where, you know, I kind of don't want you to leave with it. Yeah. I'm going to teach someone. I'm going to play it. I'm going to get it. Robinson Crusoe, for instance. That's one that we sat down with, and I thought to myself, I'm going to get this to the table on my own again. Marvel Champions is one that I've just recently been playing a lot more. And again, I thought to myself, before I'd played it more, I would have been willing to give it away. Now, I kind of desperately want it. I want more of it. I want all of it. This one, I want in my collection because I think it's really good and does something very unique with that Euro system. But I don't think I'm going to play it more than once every 6 months.
Yeah, I think I would be more likely to play this solo because I really did enjoy the solo aspect of it. But I do play a lot of games solo anyway. But
what was it about the solo that you enjoyed? Was it just the puzzle nature of it?
Yeah, I'm not holding anyone up by taking a little extra time trying to plan out my moves, and just gave me more time to kind of try to figure out a strategy.
And you were sort of not worried about beating the AI as much as playing against your own points.
Yeah, there is an AI system with cards that they score a certain amount of points at the end as well, but by the end of the game I was just more concerned with, well, am I doing better than last time? And I'm sure the more I play it and get accustomed to it, I would incorporate the AI score into it as well.
Any final thoughts? Anything, like, for instance, what's your favorite element in this game? Is it the components? Is it a mechanic?
It's the components.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That pushes you over the edge.
I'm a sucker.
Are there
for
any?
components.
So we were having an interesting discussion around Rococo recently, where some of the components feel superfluous to the point of maybe I would have preferred a cheaper game, right? So would you? I think this is like 120. Would you 120 out the door? Happy with everything here, or would you reduce some components and pay 80 for it?
I would rather pay the 120, and it's not just the components that I like. I like games with
bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I hear
like
that.
to sleeve all the cards.
I hear
and all
that
stuff. But no, yeah. If this was like
you think
everything
here is
I'd
worth
probably
it.
be less likely to play it.
I hear that. I think they really do. I think the heavy cardboard. I think the heavy chips. I think all of that really increases. I do think the wooden meeples increase the quality and game experience just with this visual like cue you have down on the board. I don't know if there's anything specifically I don't know if there's anything specifically I would not want. Maybe these are a bit superfluous for me.
I like these.
But you know, the mouthfeel isn't quite as good on those. Yeah. But at least they're not the little. I really don't like the little glass ones.
Yeah.
The glass beads are so icky. I don't like how they feel when they bump up against each other. For me, the coolest mechanic system is the difference between being out in outer space and being down on the planet. That push-pull, that constant dynamic of when and how, and modulating your workers, you kind of get into this rhythm where you're pulling some back, placing some down, and if you're able to overfill your board, you're actually able to do something interesting where you've left some behind, and you get some extra when you come back, and then you got to leave 2 or 3 back, and you can get a really nice, like, sort of title.
Knowing you're traveling back, you can overboost certain actions here, knowing you're about to get.
You're going to get those back when you come back.
Yeah, but then as the game goes on,
it's going to take a little longer.
It takes longer and longer to get back.
I don't know in a 4-player game that I would want to play a version that took another hour or 2.
Yeah.
2-player ran a little bit longer than I was expecting.
Yeah, it was about almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to play this for 4 hours. It's heavy, right? Like I like a heavy game that's maybe 2 to 3, that window. I think if I'm pushing a little bit beyond that, and I'd be concerned with a heavier player count, that it might run its length a little bit beyond where I want.
But I also think you're pushing you're pushing these. Well, no, because I guess these go up.
They
too.
do, yeah.
Not by a lot, but 3-player doesn't go up. But once you get into 4, it goes up.
I actually think 3-player might be my favorite point.
Yeah.
Looking at that board now, it'd be a little bit more tight. Might drive a little bit faster, and the push doesn't actually change.
Yeah.
4-player might run
A little bit longer.
Especially if you have someone with AP.
Yeah.
Either way, this is our first impressions of On Mars by Eagle Griffin Games. We have started copying Board Game Co. and doing number rankings at the end of our first impression videos. Now, I do mine based off of bourbon. How many bourbons could I drink while enjoying it? You don't have to do yours that way, but I'll give you mine. So for me, this is really like a 1 to 2 bourbons out of 5. You know, like if I sit down and I'm 2 old fashions in over the course of the 2-hour, 3-hour gameplay, I've had a really good time. I'm still focused. I'm still able to make cognitive decisions. I'm not going 5 bourbons deep with this.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing though. For people that don't understand ranking skills, that's like a solid 4 out of 5. Or, 8.5 out of 10. Like that's what we're equating to. But in the bourbon scale, I think responsibly I'd have to stop at 2 bourbons if I wanted to continue playing On Mars.
Yeah, I don't think I can have more than 2 bourbons.
What's your ranking out of 5, out of 10, out of bourbons?
I'll go with out of 5s. I like bourbon too, so I can go with bourbons. I'd give it a 3 bourbons out of 5.
You could go 3 bourbons deep and still enjoy this.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I'm having 3 or more bourbons, I'm probably playing by myself.
Okay, and then just pure numbers. Is it a 5 out of 5 for you, or are we?
No,
on
I'd
the edge
say
of
it's
that? It's not perfect.
4 out of 5, just because I know it would be difficult to get a group together that's interested in this heavy of a game.
It's a fair concern. Either way, whatever the case, let me know your bourbon scale down below, and let me know if ours was confusing. Whatever you do, though, whatever you do, though, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you next time.